Simon?
It's loud, so we should put bumping it down. Yeah, we'll do the first one.
Just make sure it's got all the right equipment before you start doing it.
I did it because otherwise I'm waiting and then
It might be sunshine.
No, that's as good as you get.
I think I'm going to switch off and be thinking
Thanks very much. I didn't realise that.
See, I would switch off because I'd be thinking that alarm's going to go off.
yeah, you're like, no, but what's you said, how do you
in yourself, well, you know how much, you know, from your experience. It depends how long you want to meditate.
Sorry, I was saying that.
I do it for as long as I didn't do that much.
Probably that's it. I usually like, feel like I need to start crying. I suppose I tend to do the middle of the day.
Yeah, that may be I sometimes gratitude, but I basically go to the group
No room in my...
support the local people and everything, then he was fight for the country. He did not help fight the war. So he came to France, to Europe and France, and now he's in a slum village in the south of France. Anyway, so I haven't been there, but
If you told me that,
well, so I just listen to the songs.
Right. Yeah. Ready? There'll be a delay on that.
Is that going to be the stream?
Yes.
What happens if I were to stand here and say, yeah, all right, it's fine. It's good as you never catch people's faces.
No, we just do one camera.
That's all right, mine.
Been web streaming for how long tonight there?
No, sometimes you might have to. Yeah, it's not neat, it doesn't come. So, are we about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just put
You're on camera.
only 20 minutes later. Sorry.
These headphones are streaming.
We're ready to go.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are fashionably late to unmake history. This is the 12th and final year of tenantspin, which has been a remarkable project which has taken place inside this building, outside this building and in the wider world. I've been a little part of that. I was doing some cultural commentary a few years ago, but more important, everybody in this room and a lot of other people have got ownership of the project. And like good shareholders, they've turned up for the general meeting. It's the last general meeting, it's the last time this tenant spin project will broadcast and stream live. We are now broadcasting, streaming and live, and so everything which you say, believe it or not, despite the lack of microphones, will be carried to the wider world. I don't know who you are out there, but I hope that you're tuning in to something very important. Right, tenant spin, you know what it is? If you've forgotten, we're going to show you a 15-minute film which will refresh a few memories, which will activate a few comments, and hopefully tell anybody who knew nothing about it exactly what they missed. But after that, we've got a relatively unlimited amount of time. That's the best way to signal the end. A relatively unlimited amount of time for comment. And we'll be relying on you to supply the comment. I will just be bringing in the questions. So when I cue the film, which will be in a couple of minutes, in a minute or two, we will we'll just watch that, and then a single camera and a generic mic will pick up everything in the room. Everything. So be careful what you're up to. Right. Well, special greetings to our should we call them sponsors or partners? We've got people here, I think, from what used to be called Arena Housing. Did they identify themselves? 1, 2 people. Arena Housing, now called Your Housing. Together with the Housing Action Trust, they gave a kind of distance hold to all this. And of course, tenant spin meant tenants. So let's have a little show of hands for all the tenants. Who were tenants somewhere there? Come on, put your hands up if you were a tenant or a spinner. Tenant or a spinner, here we go. Excellent. Let's have a show of hands for all the people who worked at FACT at any point during that period. Very good. And any artists who played their part in creating stuff for tenant spin? A few artists, hands going up all over the place. Excellent. So there may be others, but we'll have a chance to identify yourselves later. To be in history, you have to say who you are when we get round to the comments. Well, I think it's time to have a kind of bathe in the bath of memory now. So here is almost everything that everybody needed to know about tenant spin.
You've got the film on.
Everything about tenant spin was technically faultless.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elvis Presley. We welcome you to tenant spin.
Enjoy.
Don't look so serious, it's only a video camera.
Enjoy.
Anything to keep going in life.
Enjoy yourself. There's lots to see and hear. When you are up to tenant spin, you'll never share.
Good afternoon, and a warm welcome to both our audiences, here in the FACT Centre and hopefully online. And whoever logs on to the show, if you wish to join the chat room, just press link at the bottom of your screen.
The origins of the project were very much rooted in the Housing Action Trust 10-year government Quango agenda around regenerating these 67 tower blocks that were dotted across the Liverpool skyline.
It was all about thinking ahead to what the city is going to become, what these neighbourhoods have become. So I made a decision that I was going to collaborate with FACT on our first project.
FACT at the time was investing a lot in the collaboration programme, and it was a really genuine programme. It wasn't participation for the sake of it. There was a real need to actually engage these tenants, and the Housing Action Trusts were doing it for the right reasons as well. The community development team led by Paul Kelly really saw the need to engage not just the tenants that liked going to meetings, but those tenants that were quite isolated or behind doors. And I think a big part of tenantspin's achievement is to find and nurture some of those other, the quieter tenants.
We got this opportunity of doing a public commission in Liverpool, and thought it would be interesting to implement this tool into a housing block.
I loved my flat, and a good many more did, because they felt secure in the high rise. And when you were coming out the lift, you met people, different ones, coming out. How are you? How are you? It was like a sense of community.
Because at that point there was a great deal of uncertainty about what was going to happen to the building of Coronation Court. Was it going to be knocked down? Was it going to be refurbished? And no one actually knew. They just knew this monster called the HAT, Housing Action Trust, and then they were more or less deciding. The tenants had a representative in some meetings and so on, but it was very much top-down controlled. And we thought, why not try to challenge this, see if we could flip it all around a little bit. One of the first things that tenantspin were able to do, they were actually able to broadcast from one of the board meetings of the HAT. It was a very closed environment, and all of a sudden there was out there, all the 60 tower blocks, I think it were, inhabitants, the tenants could basically all of a sudden see what was going on behind the scenes and basically understand it.
There was an opportunity for residents to log on at the time the broadcast was happening from their blocks, from their own computers. I mean, at the time, it wasn't the case that everyone had Wi-Fi and laptops and all that, so we had things set up at different community centres and tenant flats. So they were sending questions in at the time and getting answers live, so it just opened the door.
This was a way of getting the landlords on camera, and they didn't know how many people were watching live or watching the archives video later. So they had to give straight answers, and I think to their credit, they did.
What tenantspin was offering was the opportunity for residents to have a real voice, a real critical voice to challenge the Housing Action Trust in a way, or to have a voice in the process of regeneration and change.
In fact, reached out into the community of Liverpool and found a couple of tenants that were very passionate about the life of their tower block, and found that Super Channel could give them a voice and a forum in which to invite the politicians and architects that are directly influencing their life. And this was an empowerment which not only was opened some doors for some frank communication, but also for some very warm conversations.
This is beautiful today, what we've had today. Because when we've gone to high-rise meetings and that, I've got to go and get my bus, or I'll get a taxi, and you just all float away. And no one knows inside one another's hearts or heads what's going on in their lives. But the likes of this, and more grouping like this, we get to know one another, we make a lot of friends, and you understand people's feelings, and how you've lived and whatever, and how you're happy today by these groupings and tenantspin.
It happens to the professionals. I watch Good Morning TV very often, and you'll often see them rise and nothing happens. So they look over and go, and I go, yeah, we did that.
What we did was the very, very first experience with internet TV, internet broadcasting. Even just viewing it was for many, insane. The first experience, and then being able to interact was, beyond understanding. That someone sitting there in a TV studio would react to your comments.
It was a buzz for me because I love talking in front of the camera, even though I like being behind it, and I've always got quite a lot to say anyway, so it was a nice way of me expressing myself and getting out to a wider audience. My audience was just the local community, and then all of a sudden my audience was becoming, a wider area on the web, worldwide.
The producers finally felt like they could engage with a global audience, and the audience found it was novel to connect with the studio. And so there was a sense of play. There was a sense of we can actually try new things.
I loved that in the audience it felt like quite personal. It was a very intimate space, yet at the same time it was being broadcast on the web.
So this was about filming a debate or broadcasting a project with the possibility that they could be watching. We know that only ever 2 or 3 people logged onto the chat room, and it was live chat, and this interaction was But that didn't matter in a sense. It was a possibility that any time people anywhere in the world could be watching tenantspin. And I saw that in people's faces. I saw that belief, that huge trust. And that's why it's really important as a webcasting project.
We were hoping that the community would embrace the technology, embrace the opportunities that the technology brought, embrace the forum that was relevant for each of the communities.
Hello everybody and welcome to our broadcast today on tenant board members.
And then ending up with some opinions on how we dream. What do they mean? Do they portend the future, or do they just have the same as what's happening around us at the present moment?
There were a few strands to it initially. They all started to meld as time went by, but initially there were a couple of strands. One was around sort of artistic things and fun things, and the other was around policy agenda within housing, within the regeneration context at the time.
People are deep down actually quite open to new ideas, we found. You know, on the surface and in the first few years of tenantspin were quite antagonistic to new ideas, in fact, to new technology, and the classic line, I'm a pensioner, it's not for me. That was the baseline, but through projects that dealt with core ideas, we managed to engage tenants.
And they did a series of really significant interviews with Putnam.
I think human ambition applies every bit as much age 75 as it applies at 25, once people understand what they can do.
And Will Self. Yeah. So they managed to attract enormous people you'd never even imagined could be doing a sort of mini residency or a broadcast experiment in Liverpool. So I think it had a tremendous impact.
It challenged people a lot and challenged them to think a little bit outside the box, you know, about politics, about how they operate within their community, and also how art might influence them, as well as in their day-to-day life, how it might influence them and their thought processes.
I've been to FACT and took part in quite a few things in the box. You know, that's in group discussions over various aspects, even to the when the last election came on, and some of them getting quite heated, I hasten to add. But I found that very interesting.
I saw the audience members stand up and start speaking, and then I realised that the audience were in control of the agenda. It was just like, wow, this is brilliant. This is what I want to do. They didn't always ask polite questions, but they would ask the question that as an audience member you wanted to ask.
You would never know for sure which way it would go, but it was always, very informative and enlightening.
I suppose my favourite thing about tenantspin was the kind of the undercurrents of kind of wry humour that was kind of ran throughout the project. It didn't really take itself too seriously, and there's all sorts of kind of ludicrous scenarios would kind of reveal themselves, sing along with Mike McCartney. Going from very kind of hard-hitting subjects, we did a lot of stuff with the Hillsborough Justice Group, for example, to the kind of sublimely ridiculous, and those two things really sat alongside each other very well, I think, within the project.
This was just a brilliant way to bring the kind of the complexity and richness of certain kinds of artistic practice together with ideas and the sort of enthusiasms and the stories of local people.
Rose said that John McGurk had the gift of the gab. He was a presenter for many, many years, but we sort of turned that into an art form and said, that's great. This is Pavel Buchler. Talked to him for an hour about communism, and sort of John managed that. And what really pleased me was the number of artists that we worked with, and the number of Liverpool creatives that actually passed through the project and contributed greatly to the project, and also helped me keep it quite rooted.
It wasn't just the artists in isolation doing short-term commissions in there. They were part of an ongoing dialogue with a neighbourhood or a place, and I think that's very important.
The projects were always interesting. You didn't know really at times what would come next.
The niche of tenantspin as an arts programme, there is that social side and educational side as well as creative side.
I was made to feel incredibly welcome. I just arrived from Australia into Liverpool. This was a very quick taste of Scouse culture.
But I think we did it imagine quite how much it would sprout, and the tenants, groups of tenants going to London, going to New York, going to Denmark to showcase tenantspin was quite unbelievable, really.
Arrive at some airport with 5 or 6 tenants, or in the case of New York, tenantspin on Broadway with 8 tenants, I think, and workers, and that became like a band. That was the band on tour then, and that was about meeting other community groups, struggling with technology, and trying to set up mobile studios.
We've opened up a 30 or 40 channel in 20 different countries or so, and no doubt about that tenantspin is the most successful one.
I think FACT, the organisation that it is now, and the organisation it became previously, just simply wouldn't have had that character, it wouldn't have had that spirit, it wouldn't have had that identity without the tenantspin project. It became central to the FACT story.
I think what will happen looking back on tenantspin is that we'll sort of look at it and go, God, we actually made some amazing stuff. Some of this stuff's really good.
Yeah, it's been totally different, far different than what I expected at my time of life, being 78, I have to say. But I've really enjoyed it. As I say, I have a great saying, if I didn't like it, I would not be here.
It is with regret that it finished, but that's life. Nothing goes on forever.
Thank you very, very much, and God bless.
That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shut down in May. But I know I'm gonna change that tune. When I'm back on top in June. I said that's life. Funny as it may seem, people get their kicks stomping on a tree. But I don't let it get me down. 'Cause this fine old world keeps spinning around. I've been a prophet, a poet, a pilot, a poet, a pawn and a king. I've been up, down, over and out. And I know one thing, it's time for myself to clean from my face. I pick myself up and get back in the race. That's life.
Special thanks to Carl Davies, is he here? Who did the final cut on that?
It was Carl and Ed.
Carl and Ed.
Yeah.
It's
more you.
Laura between them. I've been keeping the whole thing going through this, so that round of applause is dedicated to them as well, of course. So we've had a good memory, a run down memory lane there. A couple of things to say. Could you, Laura, just remind us how, if you, the far distant person over there, are wishing to make some comment on this, we are interactive tonight. We are interactive. How are we interactive?
As always, Stacey, are you on the chat? She's having a go. We're having a go at chatting, but it's hashtag tenantspin or at tenantspin. Sorry, hashtag tspin like that, or at tenantspin. But we also have a chat facility, but we haven't had a look at that yet, but we will.
Right, okay, well, we trust that will happen. Because it would be rather special if a few people who couldn't be here tonight could get in touch and pass some comments, which we hope will happen.
We're just waving at Patrick, who's watching.
Okay, as long as we're all systems go. It raises a question, of course, doesn't it, which I didn't know enough about, and I'm storing this one up. We're not going to do it now, which is why is it finishing? And what then is FACT going to do about it in the future? Well, they're questions towards the end of our big discussion. So, my first invitation is for anybody here who thinks that anything was missing from that film, anything didn't get said, anything that should have been emphasised that wasn't. If you'd like to speak up now, you don't have to use a microphone. somebody at the door. The landlord. Anyone would like to say anything about what we missed out from that film? Please raise your hand now, and then I will just kind of direct the camera at you. Over there first, yes.
Tracy. When tenantspin were artists in residence at the Tate Gallery. I can't remember the fifth floor project.
So Jennifer, well actually some of the artists are here, and Jennifer and me were talking. Where's Jennifer? We were talking, weren't we, about the mini DVs. As with everything in tenantspin, which everyone who's ever been involved in this room knows, there are always some technical problems. And the mini DVs from the Tate 5th floor show. What's wrong with the audio?
From the symposium.
Yeah, so they weren't, they weren't very good quality, and the live stream that we had, took all the live streams down. It's quite a long conversation, but there are a lot of pictures on the Flickr page.
We are remembering it now, thank you to you.
Yeah.
So tenantspin was at Tate. What else have we forgotten to mention? Anything else?
I'd like to have heard Arena or Your Housing talking about the value of the project to them, because they invested in it over a long period of time.
Indeed.
And
we
I
will
thought
ask
that
them
was
to
absent, really.
Yeah. So we're remembering, and we will come to the Arena people in a minute. Anything else that we've forgotten to mention?
I think just responding to that, Mike, I think what I think's missing is this is Anfield, which was done by Kim Ryan. It was a real strong documentary about the changing face of Anfield at the start of the housing market renewal. But it was actually a very informative documentary recording people's lives through the start of the changing process. And we've actually recently shown that to some residents in Anfield, because it shows how much the area has changed since the film was actually produced. So, and that, as you said earlier, these documentaries, these productions are there for life, and they do record things. Also, Laura's done an awful lot about the history of North Liverpool, and some postcards depicting the area and the positive nature of the area. So I think that, not criticism of the film's wonderful and it does capture, but I think just playing a little bit about that documentary feel that we've got and how we can hold things for prosperity.
Thank you.
And can I say that there is a ticket stub from Anfield Changing in the exhibition, which we're going to go out and see. And it is, as you all know, it's very, very difficult to encapsulate 12 years of content in 15 minutes. But in the gallery space outside, when we go outside, you'll be able to see lots and lots and lots of content. And some of that is North Liverpool content. And actually, there are some of the postcards which Alan here produced, didn't he? Over here. I've paid you in a drink. Only joking. Wrong.
We're supposed to mention that.
Okay, well, now listen. One thing is that it's another thing I'll store the word archive. And I'm going to be asking sometime towards the end of this what FACT is planning to do with the archive footage that was part of tenantspin, because it seems to me that's part of what we are rather fashionably call legacy now. And so we'll be asking about legacy in due course. Okay, thank you for your tips that we forgot. Here's my first question, which is, technology moves on very, very quickly, and what tenantspin used then, 12 years ago, and what it could use now, has changed so radically that it seems to me it's slightly changed the emphasis of things. Everybody at that point in the project had something to do with tenancy and something to do with streaming on the web on their computer. If you walk down Church Street today, everybody's looking on the cameras, they've got their phones with them. There's a generation that really doesn't seem to need to do that kind of interactivity and doesn't know what community means in the same way as the people in this room. Has history left tenantspin behind? Does anybody have any views on that? Is it inevitably part of history? Yes.
I would say that tenantspin really paved the way for that kind of society. If it wasn't for communities like tenantspin emphasising web connectivity and like community on the internet, especially with real people in real environments, then people wouldn't be made as a real society where people can use their phones to connect to people all the time. So I think really tenantspin's sort of the daddy of that.
All the money left.
You know, clearly, in terms of the rise of new media, democratising media, it's never about the technology. Technology was a working people together. You have here as a model of another form of communicating across society. We're now trying to make sense of what we've invented this monster, and we're all trying to come to terms with what it means to have multiple social media identities, what it means to live internationally, to be living in a mixed reality of being in virtual space whilst you're doing your shopping with your best mate. And in terms of younger people, which I think are really critical in this, I'm kind of looking around for, I'd really love to hear from people under the age of 10 as to what they think. Two daughters who spend a large chunk of their life in Minecraft, where there's 29 million users online at any one moment, internationally distributed. Louise is down the front, is working up a project with a number of other researchers, where effectively a games platform enabling multiple international players to talk in real time whilst they're doing a number of different things is a new reality for a lot of people. So I'd love to hear what younger people think.
Well, let's just raise that for a minute. Who's well, let's not take 10. Who's under 15 here?
I'm under 15.
I'm under 15. Would you be prepared to comment? What do you think about this world we invent, this monster? Do you feel good about it? You don't know another world, really, do you? Yeah, you feel good. We gave it, what he's saying is we kind of invented it so that you could have it and enjoy it. Okay? Well, if we are under 30, which might kind of raise the bar a bit, we may be quite used to connectivity. Anybody under 30 like to make a comment about whether the world that we've been created through this is a world that they feel on top of, that they feel used by, or they can use? Who's under 30? 35? Oh my right, very few.
This is what tenantspin is about. Keep going.
Where are we starting? I'll flip it completely over. Would anybody over 35 like to comment on whether actually, to put it on a finer point on it, tenantspin was an older people's project?
Roger, can I just, I think it's partly an
Pardon me, Alan?
I think it's partly an issue of scale. I think BT were following tenantspin for many years. We had meetings with British Telecom to see if we had the secret and they were going to roll out the tenantspin model. And we always kind of resisted that a wee bit because, in a sense, communicating with them at any time is fantastic, but you don't really get to know them maybe in the way that we got to know the tenants. We sort of, and for me that was a real struggle of keeping the project small enough to get to know people like John and Dolly and Kath and Stephen Davis, and really, really developing and engaging individuals, plus at the same time being able to talk to the world and talk to the whole of Liverpool. And that's now it's scaleless. For me, I'm not whatever age I am, it feels a bit scaleless. I mean, it's infinity and to talk to everyone at the same time. And that's really hard for our project to cope with that sense of infinity, I think. I think part of tenantspin was about taking 67 blocks, a finite number of tenants, a finite number of workers at FACT, and just trying to do the sums a wee bit. I think maybe today the sums are very, very different, if that makes sense. It was very much about scale and getting to know people and investing time, which I think the Hat did and an Arena did. You need time with a small number of people to then demonstrate to a larger number of people what's possible.
Did anybody feel changed because they were connected to the world? Anybody feel that that moment when they realised that that was going out to anywhere on Earth? Anybody get that kind of feeling? I had a little bit about it in the film. Let's have a, who did you feel something special about that?
My brother was on. He used to get on the internet.
Where
in
was he?
Australia.
In Australia?
Yeah.
And did he watch you neighbours?
Yes, he did.
On television?
He watched the first broadcast we done of, what was it?
Blockbuster.
Oh yes, it's
And they asked me,
yeah.
what the hell was I doing with the skirt above my knees for and just putting it on my head? That's what his words were when I rang him that day.
Anybody else have evidence of being seen a long way away? Anybody know about that was Australia?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes? No, you're just nodding. Anybody else remember a moment when there were people watching far away? So were you just doing it for yourselves? What was it? You were involved?
I was not directly involved, but I was very supportive of it.
Okay, well, what did you make of it?
I've been involved with FACT over 10 years.
Yeah.
And so this was very much a part of what FACT was doing. And I could see that it was something that was able to bring together a number of people that were perhaps a bit isolated with this sort of outlook. It's fantastic.
Okay, who else? What was the special about it for you?
Well, I joined rather late the tenant spin, but I've been involved with Laura Yates there on quite a few very interesting projects.
Tell everyone.
Quite a number, as I say, there's history of the local community, of course. When you mentioned history before, it's unfortunate that now it's going to stop. But what we have done, of course,
It's not stopping.
No, it's in the last.
It's the last web stream.
Oh, I see.
Let's have a little break over there. Yes.
Yeah, I'm probably going to spend all that.
Yeah.
Very proud to sign it. The young generation in our family, we're all used to internet, Skype. You know, it's so nice for other members of the family to the side of the world to keep in touch with emails, you know, other social medias. But I remember my grandma was absolutely blown away. She just couldn't get her head around at the age that she was, and obviously she didn't know that much about the media and internet and whatnot, and she just couldn't get her head around it. She was just blown away by it. Whereas it's common for us, it's a day-to-day living for us now. But for the older generation, including the anti-BCD, you know, it's really difficult for them to understand how it's
But she finally got it.
Yeah, she was getting there. Yeah, she wanted to progress a little bit further. She wanted to go on user courses and that less of all. She didn't get a chance to fully experience what we've got now, what we're fortunate to have.
Thank you for that. Yes, please.
I, again, am Dolly Lloyd's daughter. It's not the Dolly Lloyd show, but what I'm going to say is
Why not?
that tenant spin, I believe it was aimed at the older generation, and thank God it was at the time, because I do believe that tenant spin brought a lot of elderly people out of their homes, added years to their lives, and give them something to get their teeth into. And it's a shame that it's coming to an end, because I do believe we need more and more of it. I, for one, am in my 60s. I don't know a thing about today's technology. And thank God I could sit and listen to my mother, who made a rock of sense at the time.
Yeah.
And she was the best teacher that this family had.
Laura, you can say something?
I was going to say, me and Ed said I must say the two words of digital immortality, which I didn't say in that article, so I'm saying it now. Basically, for me, a lot of it is, you know, people have been filmed, like Dolly's been on film for 10 years or more, you know, and it's amazing looking back. It's a learning curve. The archive itself wasn't for me, from looking through the stuff, archiving wasn't really the point. The point was doing things, and learning new things, and stepping out. And for people like Dolly, the thing that's really struck me as a project worker is the courage of people who are older to go out to, like, Rotterdam. We were in Rotterdam, weren't we, with John McGick, and do a multilingual webcast. Yeah. Or, you know, for me it was always about the courage of older people to go and use technologies, because web streaming at the time...
I don't think it's all gone out, you know, love. Honestly, I don't think it's all gone out.
No?
My daughter's only 40 years of age. I'm 63. I'm getting up on the technology of things. And my daughter phoned me up after 14 years of never known it. for 14 years. And she spoke to me on the phone and said, Dad, I don't want emails, I don't want texts, I don't want nothing. I want to hear your voice over the phone. And she's 40 years of age.
Yeah.
So technology is not the one that, okay, it's progressing. But people will go back to the old ways.
Yeah.
Let's write a letter.
Yeah.
Let's feel how we feel. Let them see our own life. Let them hear our voices.
Okay, well, it's the virtual fact said it's not about the technology, so it might well have been about people's need to connect with other people, however we did it. What would you say there?
Yeah, I just wanted to continue on that thought. The technology will always keep on evolving, but it's more about what people can make of it. So if there are these artists or programmers that can help people to express themselves, whether it's politics, whether it's dancing, anything, then that's the point of it, because you can never catch up with that.
It's about
so that
talk
they
and
realize
it's about discussion, isn't it? It was about, they said it on there, it's about the chance to talk about things that otherwise wouldn't get talked about. And listening to people who otherwise sat in offices you couldn't get into. So it was about that. And let's talk to some of the people who were in those offices, those people from Housing Action Trusts and the rest. Could you pass some comment, please, on what you've been saying so far?
Well, I mean, there's some stuff in here. Building on this point about older people, I think what was kind of interesting about the Housing Action Trust programme was that most of the people who worked in it didn't come from a background, particularly of working with older people. So, for a start off, there wasn't those prescriptions of what people could or couldn't do. We had an amazing bunch of residents who just wanted to do stuff. And we had an amazing bunch of staff who wanted to collaborate with other people, who wanted to do stuff and have conversations with each other. So we actually had a ball, because nobody was coming to the table with expectations or limitations of what people could do. You know, I remember Olga saying, I just want to talk. She had a relation abroad and wanted to use technology to connect. But she didn't have any thoughts that she couldn't do that, and we didn't have any thoughts that she couldn't do that. So the whole collaboration with FACT, which 10 years ago wasn't in this shiny new building here, was really exciting because everybody just wanted to do stuff. And I think sometimes we get too bogged down in the detail of what we're trying to do. It was just people wanting to talk to each other.
But did that have an effect? Did it change the way housing was run? Housing was designated?
Well, I think there was still left. I work for the Housing Action Trust. Paul Ridley, the chair, is here. It was an extraordinary beast, and I think what it did and how it approached what it did is missing in a city that has still got huge change to happen. People are still lost and missing and lonely and not connected, and there are people that are still not engaged, and there are huge parts of the city that are in a shocking state. And the technology that's available, there's almost so much technology that people's voices are lost in that process, I believe. And I think the social and personal is being lost in that.
Are you saying that technology has now got to the stage where there are too many voices?
I think nobody's hearing anything.
Are you going to want to comment on that? Have we now got so much conversation and discussion going that there's too much to listen to? Yes.
I think it's good that there is this conversation going, but it's about educating public or general public through all these and similar sort of events to let people learn to recognize what is valuable and what is rubbish, because these projects like tenantspin also I think should be introduced to a younger generation, very much so, because what they know internet and all this virtual reality about is what they are presented. So it's Facebook, so it's group, social groups and all that, but they don't realize that perhaps these, social groups could be used for other things, but fun, or, if that makes sense.
It does, thank you. Some of the people here are actually involved in working with young people. Have we got any representatives?
Yeah, she's had to go.
Oh, that's fine.
She's just texted me then to say she's had to go. Oh God, we've got cafe chairs.
Well, the turnout's brilliant. Thank you for that. Now, would anybody like to comment on the fact that it should be something that the next generation learns
Not in the way
community
that
through. It's all right. We're selling to us in a minute. Yes.
What was the question?
The question is, should the generation here that learned connectedness through the tenant spin, should they now be passing it on to the next generation?
I think you just mentioned that it's the younger generation. I think there is a lesson to pass down, because although they're growing up with this technology, their uses of it are just, like you said, for entertainment and just getting a kick out of stuff, but they're forgetting how to connect with each other. They're just connecting with anything else that happens to be out there, and that's actually meaning they're losing that connection with the people in similar interests, similar concerns and issues. And they're probably the ones that need teaching the most about these things that have been lost. This sense of community, which is the thing which people in this project demonstrated was what the real thing the technology gave them was. It wasn't about reaching people on the other side of the planet, it was about reaching people in the next building or in the same community. And I think they're the things that you could teach young people how to use that technology better for than just watching someone else on the other side do something.
It's social skills as well. One day I got the train, phone died, and I get the same journey every day. I looked up and I realised every single other person was looking down, and I was like really frustrated because I really wanted to interact with something or somebody, and I couldn't. I was completely locked off. And I started talking to someone, and she looked at me like I was a weirdo, completely. And it was like the whole London subway kind of, sort of syndrome. But I'm a teacher, and I work in a place where there is zero technology, and the banter for 3 hours in the classroom is absolutely amazing. Yet when I go to colleges, everyone has technology and they're all closed off from each other.
Any ideas about how we can teach the next generation? Well, two things. The notion of community and the notion of how to use technology to create that community and discuss things. Is it to put them into schools, or do we use the technology to do that? How do we create another generation of discussing, thinking, conversing people?
Well, weirdly enough, I think your challenge with young people is going to be harder than it was with an elder generation, because at least the elder generation knew they didn't know anything about this stuff. Yeah. So they were open to learning about it, like, we don't understand this stuff, but a younger generation is going to just assume that they are native to it and they completely understand it and no one can teach them anything about it. And they're going to be harder to teach these skills too.
And we're old.
And we're old, we don't know nothing about it.
Somebody's not contributed so far. Yes, please.
I was just thinking, compared to something we were talking about earlier with tenantspin, not just being about people connecting with people, but people, the political dimension of people connecting with power as well. So the project tenantspin was about people in contact with people in the housing trust that were making decisions that actually impacted them. And I think that could be a very interesting thing to do with young people as well. It's not just about helping young people communicate and create things for each other, but also allowing them to be able to communicate with people who have power over them, who are making decisions about their lives, and challenge that as well, maybe.
Okay, thank you. So I'm envisaging a room which has got quite a lot of young people in it, let's say secondary school. I'm envisaging that they're all able to interact. On the screen in front of them is, let's say, the mayor of the city. I'm envisaging that they actually put the mayor on the spot about things that are happening out inside their school classroom. Now that's a version of what we've just been doing here, isn't it? People sitting in one place and connecting with another. So is that the model we want to follow? Is that where we go with this?
Can I say something to that?
Yes, please.
Do you not think about taking a lot of this technology away and letting be normal people? Do you think there's too much technology?
Too much technology? Any comments? Yes.
No, I just think it's about it's progress and it's how you use the technology.
I don't agree
that's
with
the
you,
key.
to be quite honest with you.
You can misuse a lawnmower. You can throw damage with a lawnmower. It's all about how you use it, and I think that's the thing that children especially maybe have to learn how to use it properly.
Right, I disagree with you there, because I think the children are going to schools now with a SIM card and a memory card implanted in their brains and not using the brain properly.
Okay, yes, go on.
I don't think we should be so harsh on the young people and the children, because I think there are a lot of young people who are using technology creatively and are doing interesting things, like rooms or programming and designing and Minecraft, and communicating with each other about the things that they're interested in, albeit virtually, but they're all still skills that you can then reapply and transfer to like real life. I think maybe just
We may be being hard, there's a comment, we may be being hard on young people. Yes, please.
I think that technology helps younger people in a way, because there's things that you can't get, say in school, from teachers to help you with your work and that, and you can get on the computer, on the internet and that, there's things that you can find. Yeah, when you come to like the GCSEs and that, you can go home, you can get a computer, you can research anything you want.
Let me just ask you a question. The comment over here was that, how old are you? 15, there you go. That 15-year-olds probably now spend less time talking and more time interacting through technology. Do you have good conversations with people?
I spend a lot of time on phones and I agree with that. I think younger people do spend more time on the internet than conversating with people. But I think it depends how you use technology. So I don't think that you should type all like young people to the same group by saying that we're all the same, we're all just cooped up in technology, when some people actually do use it for helpful reasons.
Okay, so we're assuming you're one of the good guys. Do you know anybody who you think is a bit tangled up in technology? Have you got any people, not friends, but people you've seen, of your age, who are, shall we say, a bit too engrossed in the technology and they're not very good at the social skills? Would you brother like to say something?
These are all my grandchildren. I think, being truthful, when they do visit Nan, I think they are all engrossed with the thumb work. There's not much conversation, believe me. There's lots of thumb work going on in the house when they do visit Nan.
So that kind of proves, oh, right, it proves something over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, well that's one thing then. Oh yes, please.
There seems to be quite a distinct separation between the young people and the older people. I worked at tenantspin for quite a while, and there was quite a lot of discussion about intergenerational projects that never quite happened. So I think the remit of technology, maybe, or developing technology and technology projects, could be actually looking more at that the young people work with older people and kind of create projects together, because I think the two then can kind of...
Yeah.
Well, tenantspin was nearly an intergenerational project. It didn't quite happen that way, did it? Would it be the model for an intergenerational project now, or what would be the next stage on in terms of trying to bridge that gap between the young people and the older people? Is it technology that will do that, or should we just put people in rooms and give them cups of tea?
I think it will depend on what the project emphasis are. The technology is there to facilitate your projects or any experience that you have, but things have to be relevant to all the generations that are present. Like when I first started coming to tenantspin, I was a lot younger, but I met people much older than myself and did very rewarding things with them and made great friends that I never thought I would. And it's all about what projects you do together. There's no point trying to, say, force your activities onto someone else. That'll never work. You know? So, okay, say young people want to use Facebook and to do things like, play games or whatever, but, they've got to be able to use technology to engage with the family, with friends, with the community at large, not just people of different ages, but, different genders, different, people in the community from different backgrounds, and that way the community will come closer together.
Thank you. And
Jay, can I say, Jay was 19 when he came when you were 18, and so he was the youngest, and the oldest in the group was maybe John.
It was probably John, yeah.
Who was like 75.
Yeah.
So it was intergenerational in its own way. It wasn't really about age.
Yeah, it just never came up.
No,
age was never really mentioned at all.
But it gave a different kind of possibility to people in their 70s to people in there who were 19.
Yeah, and it was about, I suppose, about creativity and using technology as a tool and the digital world as a tool.
Well, I'll take that question over there. Just the artist for a minute. Did you have a comment over there?
Yeah, just a comment. I just think technology isn't as cold and sterile as people think. There can be emotional connections through technology, and I think tenantspin's facilitated a lot of that. It isn't this can look at it with fearful eyes, and it can, you know, technology can be scary, but it's not. I'm a big advocate of social media and technology generally. You know.
I'll take that as well. Yes, please.
Yeah, to me, a lot of these kind of projects are about democracy, about empowering people. That was Facebook. It was young people using Facebook to say, no, we want this to continue.
The generation that wants change, and that I'm questioning. I'm questioning whether we have a generation who would be prepared to use something like tenantspin to actually change things at the moment.
I think we always have that conversation about young people. Are they willing to do change? Are they willing to that conversation always?
And what's the answer to it?
And sometimes we don't realise just exactly what young people are doing in the background. And, you know, I work a lot with young people, and they're so passionate. And you know, some young people work political, and they've got a real sense of justice and fairness and equality, which is fantastic, and it's to be celebrated. It really is to be celebrated.
Okay, thank you. Over there, yes, before you do.
I was just going to say that two people you don't want to be over reliant on technology, though. It can be used as a force for good, but we live within systems which require participation, and to think technology is all it takes is maybe missing the more fundamental question.
Thank you, and that's one we'll store up.
Patrick, I just wanted Patrick's on the chat, so he's saying that it feels like the world is rapidly changing, and we need platforms like tenantspin to make sense of those changes through the voices of real people. Real people.
Let me comment to that, yes.
Yeah, I think that's part of what something like this is so amazing at doing, is that exchange. And I think one of the things that I work here at FACT, one of the things that I see happening all the time is younger people bringing their fantastic empathy with technology and native ability to just jump into it and use it. And maybe older people bringing the filter, because there's this huge amount of information bombing you all the time. How do you filter out something that's useful or something that's maybe true from something that might not be? And I think that's part of what a project like this can do. That exchange can happen, so that the kind of suspicions that each group might have about the other group's approach can be cut down a little bit. So older people like myself, I would definitely include in that group, you know, slight suspicion about how technology is kind of speeding everything up, can be used by a younger person going, well actually, you know, it does make life a lot easier. But then perhaps an older person, not to put too fine a point on it, bullshit detector, you go, but yeah, you know, not all of this is true, all this stuff being thrown at you. I think there's a massive exchange to happen there. It's very positive. I see it happening all the time here.
Well, FACT is going to continue the work, and we'll ask about that in a minute. Just one thing that I do think is important, an awful lot of interactivity is now controlled by very large corporations. I mean, they are heavily capitalised. They're Google, they are Facebook, they're shares on the stock market. What was so special about tenantspin was that effectively it was not mediated by anybody else. So if you said something, there was nobody there to kind of set the rules for it. Now, if we want a model to follow in the future, it would be one, wouldn't it, that would have that in it somewhere, the idea that it was kind of localised in its ownership. Therefore, the tenancy is very important. So, do we want to... Well, let's just leave that as a thought for a minute. Some of the artists, let's see who they were again, who were involved. Yes, you were an artist involved. What did it do for you?
It was just an incredible project to work on, like the diversity of thoughts and ideas that came out of it.
That happens with a lot of artistic projects. Why was tenantspin project so special?
Because it was quite political.
Ah!
It forced agendas onto, you know, the people that were kind of, you know, making decisions. The tenants really asked the housing associations what was going on, and they really tried to kind of get answers out of people.
Now you were very early with this, weren't you? Were you asking tough questions to people? Did you kind of put questions to people who needed to be challenged?
We tried to ask meaningful questions of people who were in authority. And we said, you've made such and such a decision about our new housing, but why maybe you can explain to us in a language that we can understand why that is. And if we think it's right, we'll go along with it. But if we think it's wrong, we might fight you.
And what happened when you, were you satisfied?
They respected our wishes and did. And
what
a lot of the
hearing?
time it worked perfectly from both sides, I think.
Were you hearing you spoke to particularly?
Not here, it was more officials, artists, things like people like that.
Right, okay. Let's leave that for a minute. You yourself an artist or an organiser of music then?
Oh, I'm definitely not an organiser of this. Yeah, I worked with those in groups and artists.
Yeah, and for you, what was it like?
I suppose for me, I met some great people who I suspect were great before they worked with tenantspin, but I think there was a sense that with Donnie and John, John particularly, that he kind of had this second and third life of kind of articulating issues and facilitating conversations between his own people of his own generation and, you know, an incredible range of people, which I suspect, despite the fact he talked to anyone, anywhere, kind of was having, you know, had been brought out a bit by his work with tenantspin. And I guess, to me, going back to things that have been said before, I worked on a project last year that kind of was to do with what do we feel about technology with an older group, and it kind of felt to me that it was quite easy to kind of sort of sidestep the question of, is this about engaging with technology? It was more to do with acknowledging that that was there in the modern world. What do we then, you know, you kind of need to not be freaked out by it. You need to know that actually it's not such a big scary thing that separates an older generation who are brought up with it from younger people and from the world now.
Okay, nobody finds it a scary thing anymore, do they? Well, there's a few people who said that there's too much of it, but technology is, it's not the elephant in the room, is it? It's the kind of phoenix in the room, really. So we have to get used to the idea that we've all got to find some accommodation with it. Let's have another word. Any other? Oh, sorry. Go on.
A couple of times. Once on the Bold Street project, where we created a big archive of Bold Street and interviewed all sorts of people to bring out lots of stories. And then also on the Tate Fifth Floor exhibition. And both of those had a kind of current theme for me, which was how to use in what was then emerging technologies that not everybody was using yet. And I think, so we were using Flickr to share pictures, we were using Skype to collect audio messages from people, and it was really, really simple stuff, but it was stuff that was still early. So I remember the Bolds didn't use Twitter because there just weren't many people on Twitter yet, if you can imagine that. It sounds crazy now, and it wasn't many years ago, but I think we may take for granted the fact that everybody's sort of au fait with all these technologies that we use now. But I remember when Alan first got in touch with us about, you know, enhancing, doing streaming better, or could we help? And I think we thought you were a bit mad, because the question was, how can we do, you know, live video streaming from a building where there's not really an internet connection yet? This was before people had broadband. And I think, you know, we sort of talk about it as being just something we can do now. And it's important to remember how tenantspin was always right at the vanguard of using those technology tools, just as if that, you know, oh well, we'll just use this then, even no one else is doing that yet.
So actually, it was always cutting edge for you. Yeah. And we'll come to Twitter in a minute, because I've never quite got Twitter, but that's another issue.
This is some perspective. YouTube didn't exist when this started.
Well,
that just puts it into some context about when this started out.
12
YouTube
years ago,
was years
no
ago.
YouTube.
Years away.
Was the Twitter 12 years ago?
No, Twitter was like 2006, 2007.
There was no Facebook.
Oh,
and YouTube did not exist.
Okay, so 3 of the pillars of the establishment were all gone. That was missing. Right, I'm going to move on a little bit just because I want to. On that film, the person from the Super Channel says, "We set up many, many projects, and by far the most successful of them was the Liverpool tenantspin." Why does anybody think that was true?
The people.
Expand on that.
Well, just from watching that tells me that's what it was about. That's probably the group of people around that who came together and stayed with it and passed the baton on to new people, new generations and stuff. And I think that's often what Liverpool does give to things, which maybe, everywhere has a place like that, but I would say it's got to be the people about that, really.
Can I ask Dave Litherland, if he doesn't mind, what his opinion is on that? Because you've been around in your housing, formerly Arena Housing, for a long time while the project was being supported by Arena. So do you have any take on that, Dave? Because was this the first time you had ever, when you as a housing worker, ever come across a project that mixed together community and housing and art?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we've developed some further projects on the back of tenantspin. But I think just to put it into some sort of context, I think Paul laid out the foundation for tenantspin very well, and the work of Liverpool Housing Action Trust. And there's quite a number of legacy projects that the HAT actually developed, and one of them is obviously tenantspin. We got involved as a housing association because we were developing a number of tower blocks, and we got very excited about tenantspin, and that's why we wanted to continue the legacy with FACT to try and protect the project and try and develop it. And, at some stage it's got to move on. However, I think some of the programmes that were done were very interactive. They showed how you could get different generations of people involved in an educational basis or an interest basis, and also use it to challenge in conferences or in workshops or on the street. I've been with Laura when we've done box pops in the middle of a terraced road. I've been in quite a plush St George's Hall doing them. I've been in a conference doing them, and all of that information, people will talk in a relaxed way with somebody and you capture that information. How often do you go out and ask people and they think, oh, what did they say? Oh, I didn't quite get it down. Well, actually, you got it with tenantspin because you had that information and you could then compare it and use that to challenge. One of the projects we did very early on is we actually asked an awful lot of tenants through tenantspin what they thought of the organisation. And some of it was very good, because you always like the good bits. Some of it was actually not too good. And that gave us a real edge as to how we were going to change the way we worked. So, and that was very early on in our former Arena days, because we've just gone through a big merger now with Now Your Housing Group, but that was done when we went through a previous merger. So it has actually been used. And I'm very proud of the fact that I don't think we would have a community radio station we support on the Wirral if we hadn't been involved in tenantspin. So as a housing association, we have supported tenantspin, which is very, very multifaceted on the media side, but we've also got a radio station, and we've supported other projects as well. And I think it's hands down to the residents who've been involved, and the passion, and also the support from artists, also the staff themselves.
Thank you. Yes, well said. You wanted to. My original question was about the Liverpoolness of it. What was your
I think one of the things that it taps into just on the projects around lost communities, whether it's under the door, is the fact that people in the city are real storytellers. They're really good communicators, and they're so effervescent with knowledge and history, and I think things like this just capture that. And it's different devices. A lot of it's face to face in the traditional means of communication, but also as well a lot of new technologies. And I think it's really a mix of that, but tapping into what Liverpool is and the people are. I think.
Thank you.
Can I just tell everyone that in about 10-15 minutes we'll be having some music in the gallery, so maybe we'll come to it. I don't know.
I mean,
can I just make one very brief comment? Just look into the future. It's now
more important actually for new technology to be understood, not just by older people, but by the whole of people's age range. You know, welfare reform has had major impacts. Just, you know, in order to get on the waiting list now, it's easy to do it online. And actually, I just posed that question about, you know, the future, in that actually, you know, the project has developed skills for people, but it is important for people of all ages.
Well, I was talking before about whether schools were the place to develop the skills. Our housing associations and your housing
that are going through a number of changes, both financial and also social. So yeah, we've got far more staff on the ground working with residents than we've ever had.
Okay, this is good. I'm going to pause that one now. This was the equivalent of a kind of book from the side of the stage, kind of pulling me up this way. But before we do, I need to give a number of people at FACT the possibility of explaining how, although this is the end, it's not the end. As Winston Churchill said, this is not the end, it's not even the beginning of the end, it's the end of the beginning. So who can tell what next comes up from FACT to extend something that once was tenantspin? Laura, can you speak to it, or
sure.
Michael, who's going to speak to that?
Well, I was recently asked to think about that, like how do you say goodbye to a project like tenantspin? I felt a bit like under pressure of it, you know. I'm like the last member of staff, and I couldn't cope with it, like the pressure. But I don't know if you ever say goodbye to a project like tenantspin. You know, it was so cutting edge, and it made such an impact in so many different people's lives, and to the practice of FACT as well. And actually, we will still have a programme that focuses on older people and adults and technology, because we do have quite an extensive collaboration team at FACT, as you all know, that works with young people in schools and with veterans. And obviously we will still have a community programme, it just won't be called tenantspin anymore. And that's the thing, you know, how do you retire a name like that? I don't think you ever can. We still will invest in those programmes moving forward. And there is still lots of scope to work with older people.
It's called technology, it's no longer tenantspin, it's called technology.
Well, it's called technology, but it's also about collaborating with people who aren't necessarily that into you art straight away and making art together, like Alan Kelly here, or he'd be able to tell you a bit about that. And we've just done
you know, like the middle, the third man in the middle,
yeah.
The middle man, sorry.
Yeah.
You got the older generation,
yeah.
The younger generation. The older generation are frightened to talk to the younger generation.
I suppose
it's called society in the middle.
Yeah. I don't think that's true.
You've got two old biddies sitting there and watching Freeview. Come on the telly, go to www.com.
Yeah.
How do they get that information? You can't ask a young child.
No.
They're in trouble.
Do you mean how do they get on the internet?
Yeah.
But that's why the tenantspin here, that's what the whole project is about, really.
And that's why the
lens... You get in touch with
breaking down those boundaries.
Tenantspin and all that, yeah. But a lot of the old people don't know about tenantspin.
Well, tenantspin was in existence in specific communities, high-rise communities, Anfield. You know, it was quite small scale, really. If you wanted to do a massive tenantspin, you'd need a lot of staff and a lot of resource. We tried to do what we could, and actually the programme that is called tenantspin will continue as the community programme moving forward, and that is about people learning about the internet through creativity. If they feel excluded from that, like those people you're mentioning. Go on, Mike.
I was going to add that, of course, this was a relatively small project started by artists. It's like the way that it was so successful going forward, the way that they sort of gifted it to the people that wanted to take it forward, the way that Arena bought into it, massive. I think that at some point it will be studied, like it has to be the subject of several PhDs. And of course the archive is really, really significant and important. It informed an entire relational art practice, which is, you know, you look at the Turner Prize nominees right now. All of that, of course, is influenced 20 years previously by something like this. And more importantly, in terms of what might be, I think it was touched on earlier, this notion of inequality of access to information as everything becomes digitised. Of course, it's specifically concerning for older people. The figure that we had been working to, that 8 million people didn't have access to a computer or were online within the UK population, whilst most of the services which the government is rolling out, largely through cost-cutting exercises and recognising the power of making networks, are only accessible online. So, but that was never the task for Superflex or for tenantspin. Yeah? So, I think there's a bigger political agenda, which is also recognising, of course, that the nature of knowledge exchange has changed so significantly over a 20-year period that it's not a binary of technology or no technology, but of course it's about additionality. It's about the additionality of building new networks, new forms of learning, not teaching, and that ultimately, as society moves forward, under an extremely difficult economic scenario, internationally, what do we do as individuals, not just as organisations or previous groups, to help people, so that they've got a sense of self-esteem, that they can do things for themselves, and also in terms of what's effectively might be described as capitalist realism, i.e. that when Superflex was interested, it was an art project that existed within a memory of ideology. Now, I don't know, but I think a lot of young people have a sense of there being even an ideology, because it just seems that we have expectation and consumerism. So that I think the agenda going forward is to take the best bits of what we've all learned over a period of time. How can that be transposed into emerging projects with new people? Because they're our future, whoever they are, old or young alike. And then in terms of politically, that although you're given the sense of choice, or the sensation of direct access to power, we need to be talking to people about how they can actually achieve a sense of voice, and they can direct that voice to actually come up with alternative models or challenge things they disagree with. And I think that's me trying to make sense of it for myself. As the head of FACT, I still think that FACT itself has been challenged equally by, in a sense that, you go back to the fantastic moments of when technology was sexy, it was new, it was novel. It isn't now. So an organisation itself which was based on a love affair with technology and all of its utopian power has to completely reinvent itself, and it is entirely around the social. So it's back to this notion of a relational art form, and I think that I'd like to hope that where FACT is currently positioned, as you see the way it's developed over the last 5 years or so, that increasingly it's a much more open place for a lot more people.
Thank you. Now, I'm just going to say this. The word voice was put there. Even if we discuss nothing else, I want to make sure that there's nobody in this room who goes whose voice was wished to be heard and wasn't heard. So if you've got anything you want to say in the next 5 minutes before we make it upstairs to get some music, this is the moment to do it. Okay? Because... Yeah. Pardon? You can't sing. We don't want you to sing. You've got to sing upstairs anyway. There's a voice that hasn't been heard. Yes, please.
I think one of the key elements that ran all the way through was transparency, as well as communication. The beginnings of the hat, a lot of that was about transparency of what was going on, the process of the move, and when we went to Tate and did the 5th floor, the studio process was transparent, the broadcasting process was transparent. I think that's always been present through the project.
Thank you. Another voice there.
I also think that the beauty of tenantspin was the adaptability to change. You know, it was in an office in the Cunard building, then it came to FACT, it had its own community centre. The changing times and changing infrastructure and changing technology, kind of tenantspin co-opted that and enabled all the people to have their voice and continue to have their voice. So if it adapts another model, and without the name, then it'll still have the people who are involved in it still here. It's still about all the issues that we're talking about in tenantspin, so it'll still continue, but like I say, with different guys.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I was going to say Mavis is also.
She has
After
indeed.
you, I'll go asleep instead.
Well, I was going to pick on there, and then I'll go on Mavis.
Yeah, I was just wanting to really go to Peter Forum because the different kind of versions of how the project already has spun off and reincarnated. I was unfortunately lucky to take a version of tenantspin on the road in a project called Common Channel, where we took the studio on the road and we travelled around together with Bernadette actually. Just kind of going to different places and giving that voice, giving those tools of a democratic output channel to different communities. And we worked with the big issues, we worked with schools, there was from theatre to social issues, all sorts of things happening. And that too exists in its own little archive, is available, and is something that can continue to grow and could be something that develops further and spins off again.
Thank you. Mavis?
Which just goes back to the very beginning of tenantspin. It's been an experience for me because I did not know one end of a camera to the other. I didn't know how to use a computer, and we started off in a small office in Coronation Course, and then we went to Cunard Building, and that was a heck of an experience. And then we came here, and it's just been a learning curve all the way through.
We'll find out tomorrow. Over there?
I just wanted to say I came quite late to tenantspin, and I got involved in order to update my skills, but I didn't know it was, I come to realise it was set up by a housing group or financed and such. To what extent, I don't know. But I was interested, the guy spoke earlier, the guy by Church, he was saying it allowed him to get across his views on the housing, the housing situation at the time. Now, I find, if nothing else, it gave accountability through accessibility. It allowed tenants and other people to access the technology, which was then able to be hit by the guys who were, at the sharp end as such. The house was going on a bit.
Thank you very much.
All I wanted to say was, accountability through accessibility.
I hear two things there. I hear voice, but I hear voice directed at the right people. Not just conversation, interactivity, whether it's done through technology or whatever. It's all about us discussing, it's all about us communicating. I hear voice, and I'm going to offer the last voice, because then we really must wind up, to Alan Dunn. Not very last voice, because I want to just put in memory one or two people who played a very important part of it who can't be here tonight. But Alan, succinctly, in the way that you can, have you got any last thoughts about tenantspin you'd like to put into the conversation?
Pressure. I think two very short things. One, it kind of started as a TV channel, and that was important. We're talking about different guises and where it's going in technology, but don't forget it's like a little TV channel, which meant people who could talk, like front camera people who could research and to make short film. As a model, nobody's talked about it. As a model, was really important. That's part of the success, was the actual makeup of what tenantspin started out as. And I think finally, it's something that Katie said, the content was good. I think that the smart projects in there, there's some commissions with international artists, local artists, there's some fantastic discussions around skateboarding, paranormal, e-democracy, ethical banking. There's hundreds of good quality hours of content out there. How that is then re-put back into societies, that's the next stage.
And that was my question about archive. But that's a question to ask FACT at some point. Now, I will say that I know that we've got representative of Dolly's family here. We've got representative of John's family here. Is there anybody else who would like, for the record, this is the record and it's the final record, to remember anybody in particular whose contribution was important, who is not here tonight? Yes, please.
Olga Bailey, an extraordinary woman who lived in Coronation Court. Very different opinions and backgrounds to myself personally, but just had a heart, an openness, and a real sociability. And she was kind of a figurehead for lots of other residents, a doorway to let people get involved.
Anybody else we'd like to remember who was not here now?
Vera Cook.
Vera Cook.
Titanium knuckle.
Anybody else?
Kath Ely.
Kath Ely, yeah.
Yes? Say something about Kath?
Lives in Sefton Park. Can't be here tonight. But he was one of the movers and shares on it as well.
Can I just ask, I remember the day she came into the office at the Highways Tenants Group and said, Paul, do you know, I'd really like to make a film. I'd like to learn how to make a film. And by 2008, for a couple of months, she was commissioned to make something. What an extraordinary journey that was.
Yes, please.
I'd like to a kind thought for John McGee, Mr. Spoons himself, who was very much involved with FACT and a well-known character. So we're from me to him.
We've paid our dues. We've done our memorising. It won't stop. Of course, it won't stop. It will stay with us. But this building and the staff involved in it are one of the points of reference you can still use in the process of thinking what tenantspin might spin off into. And so don't abandon the building, keep in touch with each other, very much cherish the things that you learn through it, whether you are teaching or whether you are learning, and the things that you can't forget because they're now embedded in you, and carry those forwards, and there will always be something like tenantspin, and it will always be as good and worth being involved with. So thank you very much to everybody who's been here tonight. We are now invited to leave this room and go upstairs. Laura,
No,
would you like
it's
to take us
downstairs. Stacey, is there anything else on the chat you want to share?
I just said it was like the first time we used Twitter since like the webcast. When I was like kind of like shows tenantspin like the early days in like primitive way. And she was like, how to work. That's it.
You've been tweeted and twittered.
And then I also want to say that all these A to Z are these super manuals. And there's one chat file, but I do have more, so you can take them if you'd like. I'm not sure about these pictures, but I just put them there because I thought you might want to look at them, and I found them all over the place. Also, we're on the ground floor in the back and X space, and Mavis is going to pull the orange.
But those going to do it. But those going to do it.
So you're both going to do it. And I also want to say thank you to Neil Murray for helping us web stream. His practice has been qualified, get involved with tenantspin. And I want to say thank you.
A big round of applause for everything that should be applauded now. Don't go out there and see the open and stay for a while and talk to people.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Who's going to take a picture of this?
Batteries can be done. I'm going to try and last tenantspin. That's there at the end. I was going to say, did you want to try and walk out with it?
This was like.
Cheers.
Neil was going. Neil was like waffling for hours.
Come on. Remember the reason,
So what you can do, the battery will last on that. Switch the Wi-Fi on, pick it up, and go for a wander with it. So we might do that when we come back.
Now.
Who is the musician? No.
Sid.
Who's Sid? Singer?
Yes.
I'm probably going to...
Cool, we have to stay for the ribbon opening. Have you had a look at the stuff?
I'm going to come back.
No worries,
I'm
no
just a
worries.
bit,
But you're worn out. You just got in now. It's good, one.
Train?
Oh, it's all good. It's out there as well. It's in the cinema. Yeah. No. Yes.
I never made the cut.
Trace got cut. They're the bits from the blame on Carl.
That's it. Same over there.
It's Carl. Yeah,
that's all beaten.
The good bits. That's yeah. No, is it all right? We're going to put all the interviews online. Yeah, no, it was great. We had so much stuff in the end. We had 15 interviews, and it was actually under 10 minutes. Yeah,
It's getting that right at 30.
Yeah, and
it fits the narrative. It's just one narrative.
Yeah. But yeah, we went to be online as part of the archive as well. So that's why we did them. So we did them. So we've got the archive and stuff. Was that your cut?
Oh yeah, I went to Shoreditch today.
How cool. Oh, nice. Right, I'm going to start packing up.
Sounds like the grapes. Pretty like that one. The grapes just looks like that. If it wasn't
So yeah, no, come for a beer.
yeah, definitely.
Hello. I was thinking, where's that John Scotland?
Hello.
Do you need a hand with anything?
No. Okay.
If you want me to. Yeah, you mean for...
Yeah?
You're still doing elementary stuff, aren't you?
Well, out a bit. It's quieted down quite a bit at the moment, but we're doing still bits and bobs, so we're doing a bit of stuff with Magenta at the moment. Yeah. I'll be doing stuff with sales deal as well, but through the mountain department. So that was alright. Yeah, I think it was the Manchester North. So we did stuff for them, so... Yeah.
Oh, it's still fundraise to get this money.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to go out, but I'm going to go further shortly. So I'll just say
okay, well, nice to see you again.
Keep in touch.
Cheers, yes.
Yeah.
I know. So annoying. This is For no reason or another. Actually, it's one thing that doesn't work sometimes. Yeah. Well, but they tell them that they end up going like it's there, I think. I think it's worth anything now, it depends. Have this problem again, yeah? Well, that's what it's just.
Could you get
Glad you're not there on the intervention.
But it's actually helpful in the end.
Is she ill?
No,
Never enough time. Anything.
everything in the room is exactly the way you expect it to be?
Yeah. Yeah. And even then,
if there is someone who is like essentially a resident curating.
Yeah.
So I suppose what they
that ended it, like the aim is in the building's fine. And all that worked all fine, wasn't it? Like, if we'd given you a line out, you'd have played through everything, but yeah, true. It's just that with the but it's still, well, it is funny, it's like 12 years later, it still doesn't work.
Has that been the kind of underlying narrative or long-running narrative of this whole project?
Yeah, but it was DIY TV, don't it? So, well, a bit in the film, what Joe was saying.
You watch the BBC and they make mistakes, like, we do that too, it's like, but it's how many times?
Yes. But to be honest, I've no idea what they said in the film because I couldn't hear it.
Have you turned it off?
No.
Good. Should we try it?
Are you going out?
Should we try it? You need to turn the Wi-Fi on.
That'll kick it off straight away, won't it?
Put them all in, but then they become really heavy. Can you get that one? Can you get that one?
So shall I say that we're going to do a little trick?
Well, get out and get a bit sick.
Do these from in here?
Yes.
Sure, I can't help. I know I'm rubbish with technology. No, I'm not buying it.
Why?
Because it's expensive. I'll just wait. I'm not buying beers. No, I'm not in. I'll just wait for a second. Hello.
You were here and sitting there, weren't you?
Yes, but I thought we've been communicating by
We have. How you doing? How did it go?
Yeah.
Pack of cards, please.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, we
I can't believe I found
met before.
Okay.
Good. Did you find the store? Presentation box?
No.
I don't think I've actually spoken to you
No.
face to face.
But I've got more for one.
I thought I'd come over and say hello, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, we're just going to try and experiment and do with it.
Your honourable leaders for about 10 years and you didn't recognise it.
Oh, cheers.
That's what we see in the camera.
No one's told it. We're next up, but you've got to be honest.
We used to call it coffee. It's just left to them.
They take it away. I thought
They just left it there to rot. They still got the things in the morning.
Oh no, I need to.
Yeah. That's your phone. So that's still
Too many variables.
Yeah, I know. Streaming. Fingers crossed.
You know what, should we... Don't get involved in people's personal lives.
But they do other clubs.
Yeah.
No, you carry on.
I think it's what it's about arranging. Art.
It's using the line.
We won't do much, but here we go. Right.
Go, my son.
Yeah, he's good. He's really nice. Yeah.
How are you? There we go. Right. I knew you would go mobile at some point. Out of the box. I think in the cafe Wi-Fi. Just drop off in this corner, I think. Don't go too far. Dave, we're famous again. We're famous again. You're live.
Yeah, this is
high tech. Mobile streaming.
High tech stuff. You don't want to miss this.
You don't need one of them.
Let's get that on camera. Oh, check this out. What is that?
You would go a bit mobile streaming.
Yeah, really, yeah? It's amazing, isn't it? The number of laptops I've busted doing that.
No. So, what can I see? Drop it. found them. How you doing? We're still live, so I knew we'd go mobile at some point. How you doing? Nice to see you.
Still going anyway.
Good. How was it? Was it good? I missed it. This is only fitting. Sign the check. Take the ribbon. Here's a song, maybe. I can leave it. You want to stay out here? I've got something. Can I hand you that?
Yeah, you can. What am I doing with it? Unplug the other end. What am I doing? Just filming around. Now everyone will hear me going, what am I doing? On the mic. What am I doing, Neil? Have you got any footage of the dude on the guitar? You guys yeah. It's facial recognition on all of this. Pulling up their records. As we do it. I don't really know what I'm doing. Where's that? Alright. Do you want to go, Mark? Because I don't really...
So you're not getting there?
I don't know, it's really up to you. Is this still streaming? Yeah. I'm just doing constant panning shots from left to right. Don't really know what else to do. It's well lit, it's well lit, Neil, I'll give it that. Anyone still watching? Wow. People are still watching apparently. I suddenly feel a sense of responsibility holding this camera. And well, they will because the mic's there. Something. Apologies, people listening. Should we zoom out a bit? Oh, we can zoom in. Look at that. We have the power. I've just zoomed in a bit now.
This is how technology transfer and tenantspin events happens.
Imagine if you were watching Channel 4 or something and like, as the camera zoomed in, you heard the voice go, zoom in, look at that. I've just zoomed in a bit, Dave. I'd love that. I think that would make TV more human. Yeah, true. I'm getting sick at home, mate. Mark, do you want to go? I need to put it, my arms are getting tired. Alright, so do you want me to stop? You're going to tell people to stop? Yeah, that's all, folks. Okay. Alright, don't worry.